In recent times, the MMA world has been in sort of a frenzy, especially since the Paul brothers have decided to invade it. Let's take a look at why MMA welterweight veteran Jorge Masvidal wants a shot at Logan and Jake Paul, plus other UFC news. So let's begin. One thing people don't understand is that anyone who's in a community is very protective of it. When someone who isn't welcome decides to invade it, they're not going to cut any slack, be it from the fans or the fighters. And from the looks of it, things are no longer a joke anymore. They're getting pretty serious. A recent spectacle that emerged in the fighting world are the Paul brothers. Logan and his younger brother, Jake Paul, who are mega YouTube stars turned into Showtime boxers. And if they weren't already unbearable, now they're just getting on the nerves of people. And well, to their credit, they haven't exactly had a bad run. Just recently, older brother Logan is coming off a draw with boxing legend Floyd Mayweather in an exhibition match, whereas younger brother Jake just beat one of the greatest welterweights of all time, 5-time welterweight champion Tyron Woodley in an 8-round match via split decision. And while it's been made clear that the Paul brothers can give and take a punch, it's interesting to see how many MMA people try to run these two down. The recent addition to the list is the fan favorite Jorge Gamebred Masvidal. But well, this was something that not a lot of people saw coming, because unlike a lot of fighters, Masvidal was actually helping Jake prepare for his fight against Masvidal's former opponent, Ben Askren, who he knocked out in 2019 in just 4 seconds, setting a new record for the fastest knockout in the history of the UFC. And then, in their boxing bout, Askren was knocked out by Paul earlier into the fight, so it's safe to say they were on good terms. But that changed when this year, Masvidal placed his bets on Tyron Woodley beating Jake Paul, saying that Woodley can not to diss Jake, but Woodley can throw them hands. Gamebred later explained that, "I know Jake's never been there with a guy like that. That's explosive, that's a good athlete, and has a ton of experience over him. If Jake wins, wow, my hat's off to him. I was wrong. I didn't know shit about fighting, but chances are Woodley's going to knock him out." And this was something that Paul did not take lightly, and you know, it rubbed him the wrong way. So in response to Masvidal's comments, Jake was quick to fire back with a few fiery comments of his own, starting a Twitter feud between the two. Jake replied with the words, "The guy's kind of an airhead. Let's be honest, Masvidal's not smart. Does anyone here listen to a Masvidal interview and go, wow, that guy is intellectual and he's a smart guy, and the way he talks, he's very well spoken? He's a street fighter, gangster who got knocked out in his last fight, so maybe he's losing a few brain cells." And of course, this was something that lit the spark of potential bad blood between the two. But if there's going to be a fight between the two, there has to be several variables that need to be addressed, especially ones that pertain to Masvidal's management team and his schedule up in the UFC roster. And when the mixed martial artist was asked about his plans, he revealed a few things. He said his eyes are up to the title shot again. He said he wants a fight that could eventually be his ticket to contendership again, but his plans aren't just that. His plans are turning out to be a bit more complex. He recently told ESPN that he would indeed be interested in fighting one of the Paul brothers, and if that takes him into getting the boxing ring, well, he'll do it. To be more specific, he said he's going to beat up all the Pauls, especially if he gets paid well, and so he'd happily break a couple of Disney characters' faces while he's at it. To add that, he also mentioned how all of his former opponents, they've been training and fighting since they were adolescent. They've had years of tenure, and so does Jorge. He has like 50 professional fights. That's no joke. He said fighting someone like the Pauls will be more like a bonus than actually going to get grinded at work. And well, when all this was starting out, the feuds and the Twitter scuffles, Masvidal was kind of incredulous about it. He said, "Who is this Paul kid? He thinks we're friends because I gave him some advice in the Ben Askren fight? Get out of here, bro. I'll slap you and whoever you want, bro. I'm a fighter. Of course you can get offended." If there's one thing for sure, that is the fact that Masvidal isn't one for mincing his words. It seems like he's pretty down to fight him, but there are of course a few technicalities that need to be dealt with. There remains the fact that the seasoned MMA fighter still happens to be signed with the promotion, and that may come in the way of Masvidal's plans of rearranging the facial structure of the Pauls. But hey, don't just hang your head down yet. There's still some hope for the fight to happen. First off, the BPM champ does not have to convince the promotion president Dana White to let him make a run over at Showtime Boxing, where he could continue with his plans. And according to Masvidal, this isn't an out of the question situation because it happens. Dana White, the UFC president, doesn't like those guys either, so why would he have a problem if crossing over to a promotion is what it takes for them to, shut them up? For his disdain for the Paul brothers is apparent, as he quite often snaps back at weird remarks made from them. A few of those recent roasts include a reply to another one of Jake's cocky comments, which said that basically their feud will end with Dana White getting knocked out when he runs into him at a Las Vegas nightclub. And the suave businessman had a pretty cheeky remark, saying that it actually makes sense because he's 52 years old, kind of the same age bracket as the people that the Paul brothers like to fight. The internet went crazy over this one because it destroyed all of Jake's childish antics. But coming back to the potential Masvidal bout, he's confident that the boss might loosen up because of shared interests. Diaz. He said it's clear that Dana doesn't like the guys and said that he knows that Dana's aware of the fact that if he goes in there, he's going to be giving these kids a hurting. Maybe he does send in the assassin, finished Masvidal. And while there are things that are up in the air, Masvidal still has a professional mixed martial arts career that he has to tend to, one that takes him to the UFC Gold this time. Speaking to various publications about his plans, he said he doesn't care if it's Stephen Thompson, Gilbert Burns, or even Leon Edwards. He said he'll take anything if it gets him back to contendership and benefits him in that regard. And so far, this seems to be the only condition for signing on that dotted line for the next fight he has. When asked if he would consider former opponents like Nick Diaz for a rematch, he said he's game, but he did add that he has his eyes set on other prospects as well, especially as the welterweight division fires up this year with the comeback of former UFC superstars in the UFC 266 card that features Robbie Lawler against Nick Diaz. And there's no doubt about the fact that this could be very interesting, as Nick is more of a challenge for Masvidal, seeing as he's a former Strikeforce champion and a former title challenger in the UFC for gold. He said, if Nick looks good and does his job, why not me and Nick? I'd love to fight Nick. It's a classic fight. It's a fight I've always wanted to do since I was at Strikeforce at 155 pounds and he was at 170. Masvidal just said that it's nothing really personal, it's just because of his style and the way that he leaves it all in the ring. He said if he goes on to fight Nick, it'll be a blessing. But the priority right now isn't the Pauls or the Diaz brothers, they're just good money. Masvidal is looking for an opponent who will throttle him back into the list that has all the title challengers, and that's all he has on his mind. And he still wants Usman to be the champion if he's able to climb that ladder once again, because it seems that he doesn't have a lot of faith in Colby against the Nigerian Nightmare for a second time either, setting up a third fight having already lost to him twice. And that's all for today, folks. See you in the next video, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button before you leave. Ciao.